Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first Small Business Development Committee Parking Study Advisory Subcommittee kickoff meeting. Wish we could have come up with an acronym for that, but it is what it is. I hope you all are doing well. My name is Aaron North. I'm the Senior Economic Development Planner here for the town of Brookline. I've got some some colleagues and staff members here with me, along with a couple of the Stantec team here as well. So what I'll do is let's just first off do some introductions, everyone know who we are, and then we'll move forward with laying out what we are trying to do with this parking study subcommittee. And we'll let Stantec go into some of the future plans coming up in the next few months. So without further ado, I'll kick it off to Meredith. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. Meredith Mooney, Economic Development Director. Excited to be kicking off this work and continuing our parking study exploration.
Awesome. Jessica?
Hey everyone, Jessica DeRoy, Economic Development and Long-Term Planner. Working with Aaron on this project, I'll be heading up the Washington Square parking study.
Amy?
Good morning, Amy Ingalls. I'm the Transportation Administrator over in the Department of Public Works, helping out with the parking studies, helping with economic development. Thanks.
Dan?
Hi, Dan Martin, Sustainable Engineer in the Engineering and Transportation Department.
Awesome. Liza?
Good morning. My name is Liza Cohen. I'm a principal with Stantec, and I am the project manager for these two parking studies and was the project manager for the Coolidge Corner parking study.
Andrew?
Hey, good morning, everyone. Andrew McCray, Urban Planner with Stantec. Happy to be on the call this morning and looking forward to talking and learning, meeting all of you and learning from you all. So, pleasure to be here.
All right. In no particular order, I'm just going across my screen. Karen?
Hi, I'm Karen Flannery, Brookline resident and Brookline business owner, co-owner of Andamart Studios and literally local in the village. I'm looking forward.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh, we got a frozen one. I'll let Karen come back to us. Sarah, do you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. So my name is Sarah Petrus. I am the owner of Caddo Boutique in the village, right next to the Village Works. And yeah, this is exciting to get going. I also texted Susan Healy to see if she's coming on.
I was actually about to call her next. I'll see her next on my screen. Hi,
Oh, there
Susan.
she is.
Oh, yes. Good morning. I just had to pull over. I'm driving on my way to work. My name is Susan Healy. I am the owner of HC Studio, neighbors with Sarah. And I've been a business owner in the village for 25 years now and super excited to see the development with creating some parking progress. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. And Ailish?
Morning, my name is Ailish Gilligan. I am a business owner in Washington Square. I own the Public House for the last 24 years. I'm also the chair of the Small Business Development Committee, and I'm here for Washington Square business owners. I'm hoping some more join. I'm wondering where they all are.
Awesome. That's everyone. And Dan Murphy joined us a little bit later on. Dan, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure, I'm Director of Engineering and Transportation. I just wanted to listen in and hear the concerns of people about parking and just keep myself in tune with it. I know we've got that Dan and Amy obviously paying closer attention, but I'm just happy to listen in.
Awesome. Awesome. So thank you all for those brief introductions. I just wanted to do a brief overview. I know you've seen it in the emails. It's always good to hear it from the horse's mouth every now and then, though, too. So this subcommittee came about actually on the heels of the Washington Street Complete Streets 25% design review. Through that and through the Coolidge Corner parking and curb use study, The select board felt like it was best that we have more input from the local business owners. Hopefully it would help with business outreach and getting the word out that these projects, that these studies were happening. Hopefully we can get better feedback as well as more data to collect, so that we have more accurate data to go off of. Also, it's always good to hear some of the qualitative data that comes from you as the business owners when we conduct these different studies and whatnot. Liza, Andrew, Stantec, they do a great job in diving in headfirst into the data. But again, it's always good to just kind of get some of those qualitative and those interviews from the business owners. We will be having focus groups as we move through this process and focusing in on business and property owners as well as residents and other types of focus areas. But again, it would be good to have you involved from the start throughout the process, helping guide this along and letting us know if we're falling short somewhere or if there's something else that we need to be looking at. So that's why we wanted to involve you all. Like I said, this came about as a select board recommendation. As you will notice, half of this committee is from Brookline Village and our Brookline Village business owners. And then half of this committee is Washington Square business owners. So we wanted to try to make it as equal as possible and reflective of the 2 parking studies that we're currently doing. If it's not clear, we are doing a Brookline Village parking and curb use study and a separate Washington Square parking and curb use study. So we're trying to do parking inventory for both, but we do want to treat them separate as well. So a lot of the same things correlate. That's why we bring you all together here. That's why Liza and her team are working hand in hand with both of those 2 commercial areas. But it would be good to know that we do want them to be separate in some instances as well. So with all that being said, some of the things that we want your assistance with is guiding, like I said earlier, guiding outreach and engagement with other businesses in your area, helping us later on to determine who should be involved in some of the survey responses, promoting awareness of these surveys that we're going to get out soon, as well as the focus groups and any public meetings that we will have, providing feedback on the parking needs and curb management needs of the areas and the local businesses. And overall, just strengthen the communication between us all. So if you have something you have a question about, if there's something that you are unsure about, please feel free to reach out, not only to me, but anybody else on this team, and we will make sure that we at least try to get you some answers. That is another kind of, it's kind of hidden in here, but it's another goal of ours is to increase that communication and create a direct line so that when you have these issues going on, you know who you can reach to get some answers. I feel like that lays it out pretty well. And with that, I will let Liza and Andrew from Stantec go into what our objectives are moving forward and kind of lay out the plan for the project timeline and all. So Liza?
Great, thanks, Aaron. Could you enable screen sharing for me, please?
Yes, my apologies. Let's see if that worked.
Yes. All right. So I do have a few slides. This is working for you folks? All right. I'm just going to give a very quick overview of our plan for these studies and then happy to take any questions. So we'll probably talk for like 7 minutes. So do a quick introduction. I'll give you an overview of the different study areas for Washington Square and Brookline Village, talk about the schedule, talk about what we're doing for outreach to Aaron's point, and then we want to talk with you about some fall events we may be able to piggyback on. So this is our team. Jason and I have been doing parking studies together. Jason's been doing parking work for like 25, 30 years, and we've been working together for about 12 years now. We're the on-call consultants for the state, and we do parking studies both all over Massachusetts and all over the country. So we've seen a lot of stuff, already found something new in Brookline that we'd never seen before. So every parking study is different. This is our study area for Brookline Village, so centered around the T-stop and Washington Street. And this is our study area for Washington Square. So trying to capture not only, the core of demand, but also places where that demand kind of spills over into the next block and the next block. Our scope of work, and I'll show you a schedule in a minute, but I'll just briefly talk through these tasks. You don't need to worry about details like project management and our check-ins with the town, but we'll look at the planning context, what is planned for these two areas, what's coming down the pike. That means development, that means, street designs, that sort of thing, as well as kind of larger Brookline community goals that I know the community has put a lot of thought and effort into. We'll do an inventory, which consists of every single space, both publicly available and restricted, and that is because all those spaces together comprise the parking system, and so it's important to understand how the whole thing functions, not just the publicly available spaces. So we'll go out, we'll walk the study areas. We've already done this actually, and capture the inventory, and then we'll do it again. And again, we've already done this. We'll count every car in every space. And so putting those two things together gives us a sense of how the parking system is utilized. We'll look at it both overall and then spatially, so we can see where there are areas of parking crunch, areas of parking underutilization, start to question why that's happening. Oh, I should also say there's a small task in here to do the same for bicycle parking. Task 5 is the one that the town is asking for your help with, and that is the public engagement and outreach. But we'll essentially have 2 check-in points in each study area. One of them as more of a, hey, here's what we saw, here's the data, to Erin's point, now can you tell us your actual experience? And then another one once we have some recommendations to present. In Brookline Village, we'll do a quick look at future parking demand. So looking at, as I mentioned before, development and kind of the impact that that might have on the parking system. Put it all together into what we call a parking profile, which is essentially, this is what we saw, this is what it means. Compare that to best practices, both locally and further afield, and then create a final report with recommendations for you all. So schedule-wise, the goal is to be completely done with this by next spring. And the timing of that just has to do with, making sure we give enough time for engagement to check back in with folks. Things like the month of August when nobody's around, holiday months when nobody's around. So that just lands us in the spring. A couple things to point out here, this user perspective public outreach bar, which is the longest one in the middle. Our plan is to launch the survey that Erin shared with you folks in early July, but we will keep it open until early September because we are conscious that folks are out and about in August. This is what we did for Coolidge Corner, and we had a pretty great response rate. And then our plan is to actually start doing the engagement in the fall when people are kind of back from summer break. So we'll talk with folks in September, and we'll talk with folks again in January. The specifics of the engagement are on this slide, but there's a lot of words here. So essentially, our plan is to do in Washington Square, we'll do a pop-up where we have kind of a farmer's market tent and a table, and we'll, stand on the street and hope to get passersby. So we're not just getting the folks who wake up and choose to go to a public meeting. In Brookline Village, we're going to do a little bit more. We'll have that pop-up as well as a virtual public meeting so that we can chat with people in kind of a more focused way. So that's phase 1 for existing conditions. Again, really just trying to get kind of the story behind the story of the data. For phase 2, we'll do a public meeting in each study area where we can really talk through the recommendations and hear from folks, I don't think that's going to work here, or have you thought about this thing? And then as Erin was mentioning, bottom left here, we do have some scope for 3 focus groups during phase 1, and then ideally checking back in with those same focus groups in phase 2 when we have some recommendations. And these are just some samples of ways that we've done this virtually. We have some tools that allow people to kind of mark up maps virtually or in person. So we have a lot of tools in our toolbox to help facilitate those conversations. So that's pretty much what I have for you all. And my question for you is, are there events in the fall that we could kind of piggyback on to have our little pop-up table in either study area where, you know, we'd get a lot of people walking around and that sort of thing? And I'll take some notes. That's why it says type here.
So are you asking right now, Liza, about what events might be happening in the fall?
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, okay. So I believe that there's an open studios fair, although I could be wrong about that. Karen would know this.
Okay.
Is in Brookline Village. In Brookline Village, I think there's like an art there is in the spring anyway, but I think there is one in the fall also.
Nothing in the fall. We just do the one in the spring. But yeah, sorry, I'm on my phone. I can't, so I don't get freeze up. But there's nothing in the fall that I'm aware of. We do ramp up the third Thursday evening, open studios kinds of thing, but that's still pretty minimal at this point. I think the best bet is just the day-to-day, on the corner of Station Street and Washington Street. Yeah. But I can't, if you know of anything else, Sarah, I don't know.
No, but there should be. We should do something, Karen.
Right?
A parking party.
We absolutely should. Yeah, I mean, maybe we can put something together for the fall, but at this point, the only thing is like, what is it? In December, we do the big open studios, the big holiday fair in our building. So that's all of Station Street. Station Street Studios, everybody in 17 Station Street opens up. But might be a time to gather people, but it's not that big of a deal. Yeah.
Wait, Karen, what about just regular Brookline open studios?
There's no more Brookline Open Studios. It's now Brookline Village Arts Festival.
Okay. I think you told me that. Sorry.
Okay. That's okay. It's all confusing. Yeah. So that just happens in May. Yeah.
And
Okay,
there's no other events in Washington Square. It's just business as usual all year round. I would really suggest, though, that someone comes around and actually talks to business owners during operational hours, if they could, and just get a sense of that from those folks. It's, as you can see today, it's very hard for people to schedule to come to a meeting. And so I think really feeling like I think if you want engagement, you really need to go to the source. Sorry, my mic.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. So one of the ways that we did that in Coolidge Corner was for the survey. It asks what your relationship is with the study area, and so you have the opportunity to say I'm a business owner or what have you. And so then we can sort the results in that way, right? Like how do business owners respond? And Erin created some little, or I guess we made them and Erin distributed them, but we made these little cards that could go to every single business so that every business owner presumably was aware of the survey, and then they could also distribute them to their customers. So we'll have the stakeholder meeting, but the survey is another, we try to make it fast, 5 to 7 minutes, another great way for folks to give feedback.
Right. And can I ask a question? Why is there in phase one a public meeting not organized for Washington Square and for Brookline Village?
When we did the public meeting in Coolidge Corner, we didn't have great turnout. And we did have great turnout for the pop-up. So we decided to put our energy into that pop-up instead of hosting a public meeting at a set time.
And you don't want to do a pop-up in Washington Square? Or you don't have?
No, we are doing a pop-up. We'll do a pop-up in each study area.
Okay,
we're
sorry.
holding the public meeting in addition just in Brookline Village to catch any additional folks, but we really think we'll get most of the engagement through the pop-ups.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
I just want to clarify for the pop-up, Liza, we're trying to find dates that the business community would recommend we do them, right? Is that what the activity now?
For Brookline Village.
For both.
For both.
For both
Sorry.
study areas. Yeah.
They-
Yeah, it's
we're
going to
all
get
confusing each
confusing with
other.
both study areas. I know. We'll do our best.
Yeah.
Ailish, I had a question for you about the World Cup. Just thinking about Washington Square, and between you and the Abbey and Washington Square Tavern, is World Cup viewing like a big thing for Washington Square or not really?
No, we really only have 2 small TVs.
Okay.
Tavern doesn't have any, and the Abbey has a teeny weeny one.
Okay.
So we're not destinations really for sporting activities. That being said, we were thinking about putting a big screen somewhere maybe, but in general, everyone goes to the Coolidge Corner Clubhouse for sports. That's the destination for sporting. And it's also the games are in odd times of the day sometimes, and none of us well, the Abbey opens for lunch, but myself and Jerry do not open for lunch except on the weekend. So
Okay, that makes sense. I just wanted to see if that might be an opportunity, but it sounds like not
Yeah.
for Washington Square. Okay, thank you.
Meredith. Hi, Meredith. Susan. Hi.
Hey, Susan.
Hi, everybody. Can I have a second to ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, great. Liza, thank you so much for that presentation. And I had a question about the focus of employees and where are we going to take a look at, you know, how many, specifically how many employees drive that work in Brookline? I know I have 20 that drive from very far away, and there's always this looming fear that they're going to lose their parking. So that was my one question, and also future. And I know I heard you mention that, which is amazing, because I do know I'll be sitting on a meeting tomorrow night. There's a big project going on Webster and Kent. There's been a big project going on Kent. It's been over a year. And I want to talk a little bit about how construction affects parking. But with regard to what's going in, for example, there's a business that's going in that's going to employ 26, maybe even 30 people on Kent Street with 4 parking spots. So my question specifically is, will this study take into consideration how many employees work in Brookline Village as then separate in Washington Square, and how many of those employees rely on a car because they come from Harvard, Worcester, Providence, Hanover. I mean, none of my employees live here. So there's that question. And my next question is, my experience being here for 25 years, like right now, the parking's good because nothing's really going on. When we have a project, which we have 2 major projects slated in the next 2 years, and that's not including the complete street, that is the daycare on Washington Street, and then the 50-unit building that's going on to Kent and Webster, what will this parking study take into consideration? How many spots are removed during those construction projects so that the town may have this information? So I guess, for example, if we determine X with the parking study, then we determine that construction is going to take up 20, 30, sometimes 40 spots throughout the village. Then what's going to happen, and how is that going to impact business owners and consumers and residents? So that was my 2 questions.
Yes, lots of questions in there. So for the employee question, the way that we tend to look at parking is from the perspective of how long do you need this parking space for? So long-term parking versus short-term parking, essentially. Are you an employee? Are you somebody who's coming to are you a customer who wants to spend 6 hours in this commercial district? Like either way, that's a type of parking that needs to be provided. So that's one angle through which we look at employee parking. And then the details that you're describing of, you know, where people are coming from and what their needs are and that sort of thing are exactly why we are talking with you folks, having stakeholder meetings, doing the survey,
Right.
again, trying to get that story behind the story. And, you know, that's important to take into account. So that's sort of the two ways in which we look at what I'm going to call long-term parking demand for employees for now. In terms of future demand, yes, what we'll do is essentially look at, we use a model that's based on some national standards that sort of says, hey, a housing unit generates this much parking, 1.27 per unit, a commercial retail establishment generates this many parked cars per 1,000 square feet. And so we'll use that to forecast parking demand from any new development. And essentially what we'll do is create a scenario that is fairly reflective of, you know, realistic what's going to happen in Brookline Village. And a piece of that is saying, okay, and here are the changes to the overall parking system, right? In some cases, parking will be added. In other cases, parking will be removed. And so we kind of see how those two things measure up against one another for the overall parking system. So yeah, that's something our model is able to tackle. And thank you for the advanced input on the employee parking needs.
Yeah. So to kind of follow up with that, would it ever be beneficial to create a separate survey for business owners only that gives your company a really good understanding of how many employees are employed in Brookline Village and how many of them park? Because I think that rolling it into this whole big thing, it can kind of get lost, especially knowing that there's a new business coming in with 30 more employees. I don't know how many employees will be working at the new daycare. I think that it could be really eye-opening to understand we have, you know, X amount of businesses in the village, also Washington Square, and this is how many employees each business has, and this is how many of their employees actually drive here and they need to be here for 8 hours. Would that be something that would be possible to do?
It's not in this scope right now, but the way that we get at that, Susan, is so a part of building the model is determining what the land use is in both study areas. So we look at assessing data and we're able to understand it's this many 1,000 square feet of restaurant, retail, it's relatively detailed.
Yep.
And then that is why we count all spaces. So we are able to understand the full picture of parking demand. So we can essentially create a unique to Brookline parking generation rate, right? We can say there are this many thousands of square feet of all the different uses, and we observe that many cars. And then the national standards allow us to sort of compare that, see how it compares to national standards for parking demand. So we'll have a really good sense, and that's going to be a mix of employees and customers. And, you know, again, we look at kind of the short-term and the long-term parking needs, but we'll have a really good sense of what those parking generation rates are specific to these study areas.
Okay, great. So then that will allow, so when this data comes out, it'll be very clear to say like, oh, okay, there's 60 employees that need to park every day, all day long for 8 hours. Then 60 employees per day drive, and we have the capacity for that.
Probably won't be framed like that. It will be framed as like there are this many people at different times of day. The challenge with the employee count is that people do different things on different days, and people work from home. People choose to drive on some days, they choose not to drive on some days, and so it's just like a really squirrely number. And so we prefer to actually look at the actual parking demand patterns and use those for our analysis. But again, I don't want to discount the importance of like the story that you're telling and what your employees need. I think that's also really important and a huge component of the analysis, even if it's not like us counting.
Well, right. And it's just interesting because most businesses, their employees don't live in Brookline, and most of them live far away because they can't afford to live here or even in the near vicinity. So, and that's become more prevalent in the past probably 8 years. to 10 years, it used to be more balanced, and now it is not balanced. It's like people are moving farther and farther away, yet enjoy working in the city. So I do think it's a future concern. And so when dealing with futures and potential businesses, and this is something for economic development, and Aaron and Meredith, you know, what are we trying to generate for Washington Square and the village and in businesses, and where are those employees coming from? So thank you. I will not take up any more of your time. Thanks, Liza.
No, thanks, Susan. Appreciate the perspective.
Liza, can I ask a question? Sorry.
Yeah, just I'm going to put this slide away so we can all see each other's faces unless anyone has any other ideas for fall outreach, but I'm generally hearing general days are good.
I'd like to, I don't know if it's possible, Liza, but I think that the foot traffic patterns during the week are really different than on a weekend. I know just foot traffic wise, my store gets a lot more human beings in the store on a Saturday.
Yes.
And my store is across the street from the post office in that little corner we're talking about, Station and Washington, which is near the T. And so I just know that there's just more traffic. However, the bulk of my sales end up happening during the week. And so like my like regular clients come in during the week. So for whatever that's worth. It just
No,
like
that
different. Yeah.
Yeah, and we did 2 weekdays and 1 weekend day. So we covered for weekday, I think it was like 9 a.m. through 8 p.m. and weekend day was something like 11 through 8. I can't remember the exact times. But for that exact reason, right? Things, you know, general downtowns we see on a weekday, the peak is kind of in the middle of the day, the lunch hour, essentially, when people are also at offices. And then on the weekends, it's really dependent on kind of what's the dominant use. And that can be all over the place. So we do a count, but kind of like every 4 hours on a weekday and every 4 on a weekend, but 3 counts or something like that to try to capture those different patterns.
Oh, are you referring to an event? Like I was suggesting, like even just having the pop-up tent. Like is it possible to have it on a weekend? And
oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe we're scoped to do 1 day, but we can talk with Aaron about, you know, what we did in Coolidge Corner was we kind of created the materials and the town did a couple additional days. So I think that's good to know. We can talk about how to address that.
Yeah, because like there's a lot of people who also come for like medical reasons to Brookline Village during the week. And then on the weekend, it's like, it seems like it's the life of leisure time.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Liza, I was just going to bring up a point which makes me sound like a conspiracy theorist, but anyway, I'm going to say it anyway. Like these surveys can be infiltrated with groups with agendas, right? They're not factual and they portray a picture that is not realistic. And that's just the world we live in. It's not anyone's fault. It's just the way it is. I'm wondering what our safety net can be for people that are actually reporting real data on the ground that is contradictory to what the survey is going to say. I'm just putting it out there.
No,
Would it be more in line to actually have, as Susan said, a business owner with employee data and have that as a separate survey, just to run them alongside, just to see what the differences are? I know that's another job for you. That makes it harder.
Yeah, so it's a great point, and we use the word survey sort of flippantly, but I think if a college professor were here, I'd be admonished right now because we're certainly not doing like a statistically valid, you know, calling everyone in town kind of thing. So I see it as a questionnaire. It's another way to get input in the same way that the public meeting is a way to get input, in the same way that the stakeholder meetings are the way to get input. And what we do is we pair that with the data that we see on the ground, right? So that's like the counts and what we observe and the actual data that we capture. And then, as I mentioned in the survey itself, when you go to take it, it will sort of ask you who you are, and we can separate out the business responses from the other responses and show those. And that's been really helpful in other studies for sure. So those are kind of our safety nets. It's just the fact that there are multiple layers of analysis going on. And, you know, we're very aware that the questionnaire tool is imperfect. It's just a good way to reach busy people.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question, Liza?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you for this has been really good, and I agree with the other business owners, especially because my notes here were like, how do we capture the number of employees in each business, customer data, because a lot of businesses know how many customers they've got coming in. And that's fairly easy by number of purchases, whatever, to capture. I'm thinking of, like, you know, all the cafes and things like that. The other thing is there any way to capture business deliveries? Because one of the things that I see, and I'm sure Susan sees it, not Susan, but sorry, Sarah sees this as well, is that, you know, there are lots of deliveries throughout the day for lots of the different businesses, not even including trash pickups, but and those come and take up lots of spaces, which I don't know if you know, how your counts work, things like that. But being out on Washington Street, I just see big trucks pull up all the time, and all these businesses need deliveries. And how is that accounted for? Because that just changes traffic completely in the village every time a delivery happens.
Yeah, you know, this came up in Coolidge Corner as well. There was a lot of discussion of like the post office trucks and where the post office trucks were parking. So our counts, our inventory is very detailed, and it will capture where all the loading zones are, for example. So we're able to map those out and kind of look at.
But these aren't loading zones at all.
Yeah.
They
Okay, so you're
and right, they go in front of the, by close to the business as possible to do deliveries. A lot of restaurants, and they're getting 3-4 deliveries a day, you know. So is there some way to capture from the business owners how many deliveries? They know how many deliveries they're getting. You know, they know what their schedule is. Yeah.
Yeah. We're not getting into that level of detail on loading on this study. It is possible to do a straight up loading study to look at that. But I would say we'll probably get at that through conversations with folks like yourself to hear where the problem areas are and where the kind of trouble spots might be. And we can take that back and compare it to the loading zone map and see, you know, where there may not be enough of them, or we might need to think about a more active use of the curb. And that's, you know, a debate, a trade-off to have, right? Like, do you want to have this curb be deliveries? Do you want to have it be front door parking for your customers? But I'm glad you're bringing it up as an issue, and it's something that we can, you know, carry through the study.
Maybe we could ask a question to businesses. What percentage of your business is delivery as far as restaurants go, pickup, Uber Eats, all that kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're double parking. Or how many deliveries do you expect a week?
Yeah.
Something like that, added in the language of the survey, if you're a business owner in the square.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you all have the survey, I believe. And so those are, you know, take a look. Those are the kinds of comments that would be great to share with Erin, and we can look at them and kind of see if we think it's practical to add. And, you know, to the earlier point, sometimes there's a trade-off between like the level of detail we can get at for a survey, or like objective responses. Like we do transit work too, and we'll ask like, would you take the bus? And people are like, well, of course, if it came to my front door and went to my place of work. So you have to be really careful how you word these survey questions. But yeah, I think, you know, no reason to not try to get into some of that and ask a question or two.
Liza.
Does the town have data on Uber Eats in the town? They should have some access to some sort of data.
Uber Eats?
Yeah, I think the town should have that.
Uber is really cagey about their data, in my experience.
Oh, really?
I don't know, Amy, you've worked with them, but they do not like to share their data.
Yeah, that's been my experience as well.
or share the road. So in all, they're just greedy.
No comment.
Liza, I had a question for you about at the end of this study that you'll be doing, will we get a clear understanding of, are you going to separate, this is what we have determined the parking issues are today, and based on the actual businesses that are here and the actual flow, and then this is what we see for the future, because there are these 3 projects that are already on the docket, and then these are potential projects. So will there be a clear separation of, like, you know, immediate needs and then how that's carrying us through in the future?
Yeah.
Great.
So
Thank you.
you all, if you get a minute, maybe I can link it in the chat, but it's worth a peruse of the Coolidge Corner parking study because we're following that formula. So as I mentioned, every parking study is different.
Yeah.
So you won't, you know, but like report format's going to look the same, and our approach is the same. So, you know, take a look at that. It's on the town's website, and that'll give you a good idea of where we're headed.
And so that report will show, you know, how you collected the data, the results you came up with, and what the proposed plan was for the town. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And Susan, if it helps too, when you see that final report, by the way, all of these parking studies, including Coolidge Corner, look, Andrew just shared it in the chat. Thanks, Andrew. You can go to brooklinema.gov/ whatever the commercial area is, acronym. So Coolidge Corner would be CC parking study, Brookline Village BV parking study, Washington Square WS parking study, and each of these parking studies has their own website. So when you go to the Coolidge Corner, we have the final report on there. And just to make it easier, because it is a 100-page final report, these recommendations are towards the end, and how they're categorized as near, mid, and long-term recommendations. And so those are the things that we actually, when it comes to the Coolidge Corner, we're actually already working on some of those near-term recommendations. And so a lot of those, they really depend on what kind of policies Amy and Dan's team at the Transportation and Engineering can enact now versus what they will need to enact over time. And so you can kind of see what some of those recommendations came out of Coolidge Corner. But to help you, it's there towards the end of the final report. I didn't want you to get lost in it too bad.
Thank you. Thanks, Aaron. I will take a look at that. Thank you.
And I guess one other thing to point out about that report is there are some best practices in there from other communities, which are kind of nice to look at, like how are other communities handling these issues. And there's plenty more where those came from, but it's good to know you're not alone. And, you know, different communities are trying different things.
Yeah.
So Liza, we did have a good segue there towards the survey feedback with Ailish's question. Ailish, Sarah, Susan, Karen, are there any, if you had a chance to look at the survey, is there anything that you would edit, change, add?
The only thing I might change or add in the last question, it does ask, you know, would you see any other changes? And one of the answers that someone could check was clearer signage. But I almost feel like the sign, I know my clients, I always get like, I don't know if I can park there. I'm parked, but there's no, like, can I park there? It's constant, like, so maybe a separate question that just talks about is, do you find it easy to find, like, to know where you can park? Because there's like permit parking. So that would otherwise I think it's great. That was the only thing I would add.
I like that question. One of my favorite, I always talk about this. You all don't so much have this problem, but one of my favorite parking studies is we asked in this particular community, what are the names of these 3 parking facilities?
Yeah.
And no one had any clue. So that's so important, Susan. Like, I always compare parking to, like, when you drive into Logan, it is so clear where you park for what thing. Yeah. And that's kind of the approach that a downtown needs to take, because you don't have the advantage of being a mall parking lot where it's like super obvious what you're doing. So yeah, a sign that says park over here can make a high impact.
Definitely, because I think that if it is super clear, then every space that's available will be utilized. I have a feeling that there are some places that people can park right now and they don't even know it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so there's some very lost parking going on right now. So I think that is something that I hear a lot, like just confusion. So otherwise, I think it's great. I think it hits every button.
I think as long as we have pretty much the same, some were relevant, the same questions for both parties or road users, it would be great. I'm just looking for question 17. And I'm trying to see, is there a comparable question for the first group of, which I think there probably is, and I'm just not seeing it.
You mean for the people who bike and the people who drive?
Yeah, I think there probably is, but I don't see it right now. Do you leave if you can't find parking, kind of thing?
I can double check that.
Yeah, I just think it's important to have continuity for both groups. And also, it'd be great for people to say, when do you experience the most difficulty, or do you know, at what times? Just to, I mean, you're going to identify that by yourself, obviously, but it's important to have other people tell you what their experience is, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, we're very different business models. In Washington Square, we're operation really at capacity at nighttime. Brookline Village is completely opposite. I mean, obviously they have a lot of restaurants there too. They do, but a lot of their business is during the day. So
yeah, we have a question in our question bank, I think, that we've used for that before. The only thing I should say is, and this is nothing against that question in particular, but we do try to keep this thing as short as possible.
I know. I get it. Yeah, totally. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, if it's too long, I don't think people are going to fill it out.
No.
Right.
No.
Yeah, like it, and I thought that was pretty easy and to the point, and each question is broad enough to get good information, and the choice of answers was really good. So I think it's great. I mean, I think we'll get some really good data from that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the final thing to say about the survey is I believe somewhere there's an opportunity for people to just provide general feedback, which is really important, so that, you know, they feel like they have an outlet to be heard, and we will look at that. So that's why there's, you know, the open-ended question, and we found that helpful in the past.
When will this be live again, Liza? That I know you're going to run it through September.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering when it will be available to start.
Our goal is like next week.
Okay.
Aaron and Meredith, I think our goal is really to get it into the town manager newsletter for next month, right?
Yep.
So
exactly.
We'll take the feedback that we hear today and make those updates, and those should be fairly fast. I think we should be able to do that.
And maybe the chamber can push out to the businesses so that the chamber can let the businesses be aware that this is happening. I intend on having an iPad, and when my clients check in, I'm just going to ask them to fill it out, like on a daily basis. It's just going to be part of our check-in. I mean, I have on average 65 to 70 clients a day that come in, and I would say 90% of them drive. And probably 60% of them are not from Brookline. So.
Well, that's awesome, Susan. And that would be great if you could do that. Well, what I'll also do is, it was mentioned at the top of the meeting, as soon as we have some note cards or postcards with the QR code to the survey, I can come around and give some of you businesses those to put at your register as well, especially people like you, Sarah, and Karen with Literally Local. That way, when people go to check out, they can scan it real quick. It'd be a quick little way for the cashier to remind them and have them scan that before they leave. So yeah, if anybody needs any of those, I don't mind passing them out. And if you have neighbors that you see regularly too, that would help me in distributing these. But yeah, we do plan on sharing it with the chamber.
And is it, if we get those, you know, postcards and have some made, can you leave them? I always find the best people to capture are the ones that actually drove there. I did my own parking study a couple of years ago. I made postcards and put them on the cars, and I would walk around the neighborhood, put them on the cars. And that's when we were talking about the, air rights project. But anyways, it was really interesting. I got great results from it. Is that something that we can do? Put them on cars, like in their windshield?
I will check on that, but I
Our
can definitely
cars?
have extras printed out
Yeah.
to give
I
out.
mean, I wouldn't even mind printing them out. I guess I'm just asking from a legality standpoint or from the town. This is obviously not coming from me. It's coming from the town. Is it allowed, like, to put them on cars that are parked on Station Street?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'll need to check.
Okay, great. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you.
No problem.
I mean, I just think get it out to as many people that is relevant.
Right.
And people who are currently parked in the village, it's relevant to them because they're
Yeah.
parked here. So
Yeah.
great.
Is there a way to get a pile of these to every business, or, you know, do you want to go around to find, because there's the new bar place, you know, the new exercise place open. There's a lot of places
Yeah.
open, as well as not, you know, as well as other businesses in our building that have, you know, 40 employees. So I'm going to go drop them off a pile of them. But is there a way to, you know, how else can we capture everybody's input? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Karen, my plan was to come distribute these to some of y'all. And if you need multiple of them, a pile or so, I can definitely make that happen. And then I was going to go, just like you said, around to the other nearby businesses as well, staying within the study area, of course. And then just like I mentioned, if we need extra, just come to me and we can get those made. But I same kind of belief on our side too. We want to try to get these out to as many people as possible. The more data, the more we have to work with.
Okay.
Hey, Aaron, I had a quick question, suggestion, but a question first before I make the suggestion. Is there existing business listserv where you have all of the email addresses from the businesses in the area? Or I'm thinking that may be a way to disseminate the survey as well, if there's a listserv of the businesses, or if the survey was shared through their respective businesses on the call as well through their listservs. So those may be options as well.
Great suggestion. So along with sharing this survey and a little blurb about it with the chamber, I'll probably send the same thing, not only to the town administrator's newsletter. We also have this thing called the Business Newsflash in town, and over 500 businesses are signed up for that. We'll send it out to the Business Newsflash. And then I believe Sarah, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, but Melissa might have the one, but I'll send it to the Brookline Village contact. And that's a good way of getting information out to Brookline Village businesses. And then Ailish is my contact for Washington Square. So I'm hopeful that Ailish can help me with Washington Square. But yeah, any way to get the word out more, that's a good suggestion, Andrew.
Can the chamber send something out, Aaron?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
They have a business class they're doing weekly now.
Right, right.
And so
Good.
yeah, we'll definitely get that in there.
Are you sitting in on the meeting tomorrow night for the Webster Kent project? There's a meeting tomorrow night.
It wasn't on my radar, but we'll definitely look into that because I know exactly which project you're talking about.
I think it would be maybe important for someone from your department to sit in on that. It's a pretty big project. It's 50 units. It's going to greatly affect the village in a lot of positive ways. Obviously, it's exciting to see the development, but I'm definitely want to hear. I think it's going to be important to know the scope of the project, because the project that happened down the street, and it's half the size, it's an eighth of the size. Literally, there was no parking when, like, from 7 to 2. There were, one day I counted 40 trucks. So I think that we need to get on top of this with the planning board, maybe, Aaron, so that maybe the Brookline town can, like, spear this off, and that these developers are allotted X amount of spaces, and otherwise they need to bus people in. So I would love it if someone from the from the business development would sit in on that meeting tomorrow night. I think it's going to be very important to see what their plans are with regard to parking.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we will definitely look into this, Susan. Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Great.
One more quick thing, Aaron, which is Susan and I have collected so many emails during this whole Complete Streets project for the business owners in Brookline. So I should connect with Melissa. I know that she's the main contact for the village, but I should contact her because I don't know that she has all those people.
Okay. That'd be great. Yeah. Any way to add those to the listserv so that when we do get the word out, I like that. Connecting more people.
Yeah.
Okay. This has been great feedback, everyone. Thank you so much. Sometimes it's like pulling teeth to try to get some comments and suggestions. So this is great. Yeah, exactly. We like this. Liza, was there anything else from y'all's end? Next steps, we'll get the survey out hopefully by next week. Anything else to share?
No, I think this is super helpful and helps us, have a more robust study and great feedback. So really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much.
And thank you for being here, Andrew, Liza. Before we let you all go, especially our subcommittee members, is this time a good standing time? Because just like what Ailish was saying, I know that it doesn't necessarily work for everyone all the time, but would a Wednesday 9 a.m. is this usually a good time?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm seeing a lot of head nods and yes. Okay, good. What I'll try to do though is throw us in another coming meeting to have a check-in. And I'll work on which Wednesday that is, because we also have some standing Wednesday 9 a.m. meetings. I think the second Wednesday of the month with the CCMA. So thank you all for coming. Be looking out for any future emails. If you take another look at the survey and you have any other feedback or any comments that come out while you're thinking about all this and letting it digest, please feel free to email me. Please feel free to email Jessica. We would love to pass along the word, but we really appreciate you all joining us this morning and helping us get this all kicked off in your participation. So thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice.
See y'all later.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.